finally coming out with my story was realizing that, holy shit, my story is not that uncommon. And it's heartbreaking because I don't want somebody else to go through what I've gone through. And,
Mhm.
you think too for a time like, oh, well, people have been through so much worse, which is also something that I did to myself, which was comparing and kind of
Trauma
gaslighting
shaming.
myself. And yeah, like, oh, well, their trauma was so much worse than mine. I couldn't possibly, complain, which is also just another form of shame,
Hmm.
that you have to peel back. But thankfully, I'm past that. But I mean, I don't know how far you want me to go back into the story. I can kind of put it in a nutshell because really what happened to me was horrific and tragic, but everything after was much worse than the actual trauma. So I
Mm.
was, you know, it's true. And when I really go back and look at this through that lens of like, okay, I was a 20, actually I was 19. Um, I was first duty station in the army. Um, Met a guy, was sort of dating him, I guess you could say. And I found out he was married, and I was like, what the heck? Nope, this ain't how I roll. So I'm going to end this. I had no reason to really be afraid of him necessarily. So I went to kind of break things off and get my stuff, leave a note, and he was on leave and came back a day early. So when I was leaving out of the house, he caught me in the doorway, and I could tell that he knew that I knew, and it was like not going to be good. So we exchanged words, but he locked the door and said, "You're not going anywhere." And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? I really, in hindsight, the more, even since I shared my story originally back in the fall, for the first time openly, I've even found more insight since then, just memories coming up and things that, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And this happened too. Um, but I stayed in that house for, I think it was about 48 hours. I think it was 2 nights. Honestly, when you go through something like that, it's funny because haters will say, well, what do you mean you can't remember exactly? Well, why don't
It's
you get raped
trauma.
and sodomized and then you have to
Yeah.
tell your story?
Yeah.
Like,